In 2004, we started this project, building paper models and working our way through the design process. It was about 6 months of model building and concept design problems. It's a large project. It's a 33-foot piece of sculpture, 30 feet wide, and a second piece that's 22 feet high, 20 feet wide. And what you see here is first the construction of the smaller piece, and then we were shut down on that for a while and we had to start the larger one. And this really takes on some enormous problems. The metal we had was 8 by 30 feet, 3/16 of an inch thick, weighing in around 2,000 pounds a panel. Each side was made out of 3 pieces in order to make one sheet. As you're coming to some of the framework here that shows how we were putting the piece together, and here's a piece where I'm in the picture, so you get an idea of the huge scale and the size of equipment. But anyway, as we worked along and construction kept moving, we managed to come up with systems and styles using the paper model for construction. And we pre-arched metal and we fabricated together. And then we ran into a problem because the weight of the metal was so much that the unsupported sheet of metal wouldn't stay where we wanted it, collapsing on itself. It was a problem. These multiple chains here actually show you where pick points where we would pull the metal back. And then once we overcame that, then everything started coming together. Then it's a matter of moving this gigantic object and getting the appropriate equipment for it. As we progressed through this phase of the project and started to move on to the other parts of it, sky cranes, and various pieces of machinery, we were able to pick up and move these large forms and place them wherever we chose to, with remarkable precision. And here's some interior shots that I kind of fell in love with, because you don't get to see these when your piece is standing up, and creates these kind of cave-like shapes. And then the second piece we started building and getting prepared for, and the pieces leaning against the wall were some of the shapes that we were going to be building. And here we are finishing up that first shape. You see, it's a sizable thing, and it's a dangerous thing. And I'm used to working alone, and on this job I had good help, and I tried to use it as little as possible, but it's a large job. You experience all these new problems. You hear our little interrupted track. And you'll be hearing that a little bit more because we spliced into this some pieces of film we were able to get. Anyway, these shapes, now this was very interesting because these two shapes we cut and tack welded together. I preset them in the form, and as I set them in the form, we set them to where they would start to fall apart. And we're coming up to the sequence now, and here we are setting those two sheets. You start to see is that its own weight opened it up like a flower, and then here we are fabricating that first piece. It's a very interesting process, and there were problems because the sheets, because we had to pre-finish them, would warp the opposite direction, so we had to force them back into the shape they had to be. And as we went, we built scaffolding and more scaffolding, until finally the thing looks like a pirate ship. And it was, like I say, it was a very big experience. And up to that point, just fabricating it, and this is without the welding and all the grinding that's involved in it, and all the little engineering problems about how to safety the tips and how to secure everything correctly, you end up with this, well, really a fabrication nightmare, but then you're not even halfway there. Because once it's to this point and you start to go, okay, now we're going to set it on the ground, you've got to lay it down and then flop the thing around and turn it to the right position for all the welds to be done. Each edge got as many as 7 welds. I did the math on it, and I got over a mile's worth of welding between the two sculptures. And then everything had to be ground after that piece, the inside shots on the second base. And here we are laid on the ground and moving these monstrous pieces around. Now, the biggest piece runs almost 42 feet. It's 30 feet high, but it runs for almost 40 feet. And so, we have to turn them, we have to flop them, and every time you move one, if you turn it over, it's about a half a day to 3/4 of a day work. Here we are, we're just past the foundation, and we're moving along, we're getting ready. Now, we had to tent these, and we went through basically, 6 seasons of work, and each time, it was rain, it was snow, and then it's heat. The problem is that the stainless glares, and we had to keep that back and keep it cooled off, and we moved through winter months into summer months, and I mean it went on and on. And here we are again, a little bit of motion, a little bit of this, And, you know, here's a scale model on the front of this, just to come in on it. And it's an exact scale model within just micro inches of what the individual piece ended up at. We were about 4,000 pounds per side, and it sat on 6 1-inch bolts, and it's kind of set like a light pole, and that way we could readjust it and fine tune it after it's set. Even getting it out of the yard, it was a lot like building a ship in my backyard. And as we started working, it really became apparent that this was absolutely the maximum I could do in my yard. And it doesn't mean I couldn't build a taller one, but what looks like the shorter piece, which is actually the largest piece, is this 42 feet in length, but it's 18 feet wide. And here we are starting to move these shapes around, and it was really kind of thrilling. But it was also frightening, because here's a year and a half work spinning around on this dangly little line, which really wasn't little, but when you see it from this distance, it looks like a thread. And rigging was just amazing, and working with the people at Crane Services, these people really knew what they were doing, and it really made it a joy, because handling the pieces and moving around and staging everything, and we're involved in the staging, but it really was, it was very important to have all the right people there. I have nothing but confidence in these people. But you hit a schedule, but the schedule doesn't always go with weather. And then weather turns into wind, and at least it didn't rain that day. That was a real grateful thing. And you can see there was cloud cover in the beginning, but then it burns off, and you're just subjected to it. It's big sculpture. But here we are, we're starting to finally erect the second piece, and at the end of the day, and it took a full day to get everything mounted, everything bolted down, and then the rest of the day was adjusting and chasing threads and getting everything to where they were really finished. Well, I'm L.A. Baudouin. I've been your narrator, and the fellow who worked with me is named Tim Hooton, another fine sculptor and a great artisan, and there's a lot of people to thank in all of this. It was a long job and a lot of work, and I hope you enjoy my film. Some of the finished photos.